Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Today, we're going to have a little fun. So we have Steve Chinen back, who you heard on this podcast a couple months ago. I believe it was the beginning of June. And we talked about a lot of things regarding like forgiveness and women and relationships and such. And this was actually what we're hearing today is the conversation that was intended. But as conversations go, we kind of go where it takes us. So from that initial conversation, we decided to just keep recording and get to the segments that we're going to talk about on that first podcast. So today we're talking about the love languages, which is based off the best-selling book by Chapman, The 5 Love Languages, selling over 12 million copies. And since that time, the 5 love languages has been improving relationships for more than 25 years. The most common issue in any relationship is a communication barrier. Everyone experiences love differently, and it's easy to miss what your partner feels is not exactly the same thing that you might feel loved. So understanding each other is so important to our relationships thriving. So today, Steve and I really touched up on the languages, and it's so fun to hear from a man's perspective. And we also hear about how it is so attractive for a woman to really be in touch with her femininity and what it really does for a man when she is in that beautiful receptive state. A man feels like a champion and he is really raring to give and to be your hero. So listen in on this conversation. It's a lot of fun and enjoy. Welcome back, Steve, to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I am so thrilled to have you on again.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate that so much.
Yeah, so our last conversation, we talked a lot about compassion and how we can forgive ourselves and how connection is so important to us as human beings. And it's one of the most important things that we can have in our life is relationships. Now, to take us back a little bit, I met Steve through the Facebook Live Challenge, and he's been known as the CIO of the Facebook Lives because he's our Chief Inspirational Officer, and he gives amazing shout outs to everybody who's vulnerable and really shares their heart. And he's our biggest cheerleader. And we had a conversation a couple months ago. Actually, it was like in the fall, I think September, where we talked about the love language. So Tina Gesso and I had a segment on called Love Talks. And it was for women, and we would talk about different subjects about women. And then we had something called the Men's Week. So we brought Men's Week in, and I think the topic was about healing after a breakup. And the love languages came up. So we did a whole segment on the love languages, and we heard from the men's perspective. So Steve has a really cool spin on all this, which he calls the 5 senses. But first of all, let's talk about the love languages a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Gary Chapman, amazing. He put out this book called The 5 Love Languages, and it was based upon a lot of his practice in his field, as well as through some things he learned through church. And he identified that men and women have certain needs and wants that often aren't met because we're often speaking a different language in the space of love and what we crave for in love, how we show love towards other people, how we receive love, and what forms of love actually resonate with us the most as a man or woman. And it was just amazing to read his book and to understand his principles behind it. And there are 5 love languages, and he breaks it down between quality time, physical touch, acts of service, gifts, and words of affirmation. And when you take that test and you identify what is your primary love language, and then you also have your secondary love language, you can identify what it is that you crave for the most, what it is that you need the most in your life. And it can come from a space of, this is how love has been shown to me my entire life, from my upbringing, through my relationships, through this is how I felt. I felt this feeling when love was shown me this way. So it's been ingrained into me that this is that feeling that I just crave for. I love it. I feel absolutely love feeling this. And it's what matters the most to me. And a lot of it can come from, I crave to have attention throughout my entire life. I didn't feel seen and heard. So to feel like quality time with somebody, because I never really had that. That really matters to me the most, and for other people to have gifts, because maybe times were hard throughout your life and you really didn't have gifts, but when your mom bought you a gift through her last $10 of her paycheck and she got you something, you knew that that gift meant something because this was her last $10. And whatever it is that she got you, it was coming from a place of the most unconditional sense of love. So you take that with you through your relationships. And when your boyfriend, your wife, whoever gives you a gift and they really put something into it, it brings you back to that deep sense of feeling absolute unconditional love, because you felt that at that moment in your life. Or whether it's, you're a very busy person, you're always on the move, and you just want peace. So to know that somebody is giving you peace through taking a load off you, through acts of service, through taking out the trash, because as a woman, it's not about the fact that you're weak. It's at night, like there's something where oftentimes women become more vigilant through their surroundings, through their experiences, through what has happened in their life, that it just makes you feel safe and it makes you feel loved to know that your husband is taking out the trash and doing this for you to take that load off you, as well as to making sure that you don't have to go out and be outdoors at night. So it goes beyond just taking out a 13-gallon trash bag out there. There's a meaning behind it, and that meaning matters to her, and whether it's words of affirmation that you've always craved to have somebody tell you, oh, great job, or, oh my God, you're such a beautiful person. And I'm not talking about your looks. I'm talking about who you are as a person, how you show up to the world. It's just so elegantly, it's so beautifully. And I am just in awe of who you are as a person. And then if you're sharing things with that person, it's coming from your heart. It's not surface level words. It matters to that person. So it's, and also physical touch. Maybe you've always been a touchy-feely type of person, and you just crave that because you love that feeling of hugging your grandma, going to your grandma's house for Sunday dinner or whatsoever. And that feeling that you had, just embracing that woman who had so much love for you, that has just filled your entire life, that I absolutely love to be touched. And we take that into our romantic relationships. We take these experiences, these emotions, these moments in time that really matter to us, and we take that into what is our primary and what is our secondary love language of what matters the most in our life and which one matters. So I feel it's such an amazing tool to have.
And it's funny, Steve, because it can change throughout your lifetime. So you can do it for your partner, you can do some for other people in your life, but like you said, the primary is the love language. So I retook this test yesterday because I knew you were coming on and I wanted to just see if anything has changed. And I did the test for the singles because they've got them broken down into different categories now, which is so cool from when the first time I had done it many years ago. And it's interesting, Steve. Mine completely changed. The second one is still the same. Quality time is one of my most important things, but initially it was physical touch. And I believe physical touch was something I love physical touch. I love being physical. I love being connected to my partner that way. But I think maybe that being a primary was more out of a sense of neediness. I was adopted. I went from my birth mother to foster parents to my adopted parents, and I was loved tremendously by my family. But I think I always carried a sense of, I was sure I was taken away from my birth mother right away. So there wasn't that bonding, there wasn't that connection with her as soon as you're born, and how important that is to have the skin contact and have like that nurturing and the mother's milk. So I didn't have that. And then I went to foster parents, and she loved me and she wanted to keep me, and then I was given up 5 months later. So it was ingrained in me, and not to come from a place of victim mentality or anything, but it's just kind of like a theme that was resonating unconsciously until it came to the surface through my whole life. So, and I really needed like physical touch a lot from my partners, and I still would love it, even though now my number one is acts of service. It's so, I couldn't believe I'm 32% acts of service and 29% quality time, and now only 16% physical touch. So for someone to do something without me having to ask makes me feel loved. For someone to do something that, maybe they don't have a lot of time, but they're still doing it anyway because they can see that I need that I need help with that. That became my biggest love language. And I'm so glad that I redid the test, because now I can take that into my next relationship, my next partnership, and knowing this and knowing these things about the other person is so important, because how we may feel we are being loved is not exactly how they feel loved. So anybody out there who has not done this love language test, it really can shed light on how your other partner relates to you and how you can relate to them and have more harmony in our relationships. So yeah, that was such a revolutionary book, and it's still being used today.
I was curious that your love language changed, and do you think that because you are so awakened right now as a woman, because you are so focused on being in touch with your most divine feminine and allowing yourself to be opened up to surrender to the relationship that you are going to have, to allowing a man to be in his masculine, to be in a sense of service to you, of a sense of servanthood to you, of providing that stability, and through these different ways of acts of service, that because you've opened yourself up so
Mm.
much into your feminine, that has ignited this change from physical touch to acts of service, because you are now allowing a man to basically be in his masculine for you to fully embody your feminine.
Oh, Steve, I just love that. You know what? I never really looked at it that way, and you are absolutely right. See, this is why you need to look Steve up and work with him. You're like, hello. He just put like the open sign on the window there. So yes, open. Yes, absolutely, 100,000%. It is because I am, did a lot of the work, and I've opened myself up, and I've dived into my own sensuality and femininity as a woman, where we're taught as women to, we're the givers, we have to do it all, we give, and it's in our nature, but it's actually in our nature to receive as a woman, and it's men's innate nature to give, and we've gotten those turned around. So I am willing to allow a man to give to me, and without having to prove myself by overgiving. I used to overgive with compromise to my own self and what I needed for myself, because it's all about him, making him happy. And if I showed him how happy he can be, then the relationship would work. But my relationships always ended up combusting because I was overgiving and compromised to my own self. So how is a man supposed to respect me if I wasn't respecting myself? And also like the neediness of like, being touched and being seen, but now I can allow a man to give to me, and I can be receptive to it. And I do, just knowing that I'm being seen and heard for my wants and my needs, and having that taken into an account is such a huge thing for me now. And so yes, Steve, thank you for bringing that up, because that is exactly it. Yes.
I think when a woman truly embodies what you just said and gets out of her head and gets into her feminine, gets into her heart, and doesn't think, oh my God, if I do this, I'm not strong. I'm not independent. I'm going against everything I believe in by asking for this, or thinking of that word providing, to ask somebody to provide for me. That is showing lack of independence. Like when you can get out of your head and understand that us as men, like we crave to being able to do things for a woman. We crave to want to make a woman's life easier and to take a load off her, because we know that women have so much that they need to do in their life, that we don't have to do, that we could never understand, you know. And when we are able to allow a woman to have that sense of peace, have that sense of stillness, and she invites us to do that, that makes us so much of a man. That makes us like a man's man, of wanting to do, provide everything for a woman. And we will do whatever it is that we have to do in order to provide that for a woman. But we need to have that safe container for a woman to allow us to do that, to inspire us to do that, to be receptive to receiving it in a way where it's non-judgmental, it's non-picky, it's not from a sense of I am telling you what to do, but it's sense of like, oh my God, this would really make my life easier if you could do this for me. This would bring so much joy to me by this, by you doing this, by you cleaning out the gutters. Like it brings me peace knowing that that's one less thing I have to worry about the house, you know, by you picking up those stupid socks that are always missing the hamper. It brings me peace knowing that I don't have to pick up the goddamn sock that I have to pick up every day after you come home from work. But I am being, am I feminine? I'm just telling you, it would bring me so much joy to know that that sock is in the hamper. And when a man is told what this does to a woman, he then goes from, oh my God, she's being needy, to, huh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to know. Like I never knew that mattered to her. And I never knew what my sock did. Like I just thought my sock was on the ground. And if I was a single guy, that really wouldn't matter to me. But the environment matters to a woman. And to seeing a full trash can, it's not just the trash can is full, it's just over clutter. And it's just irritating to look at, and it needs to be gone. Just like something that's dirty, you know, it needs to be cleaned. And it's something that guys really don't understand, that that matters. When a guy could basically have dishes piled up in the sink, he could have like a full hamper of stuff, and until he has to either buy new underwear or whatever, like he's not going to do it, you know. Like those are the things that guys, like, we think logically that, you know, it doesn't matter what our environment looks like. But those are the things that when a woman invites us, when she empowers us, and she shares with us what it does for her, and then after we do it, she makes us feel like we are the king, like we are the fixer, the do all be all, and if it wasn't for us, all this wouldn't have happened. When we're shown appreciation, it elevates us to want to do that again, because we crave that feeling of appreciation, probably as much as that is probably the biggest thing that men value from a woman as far as words. It's to be appreciated for what we've done, for what we've accomplished, for how we've made their life easier. All we need is a thank you, you know? That's all we need. And then our cup is filled.
And that just reminds me of a quote that I've heard from, actually, Coop Blackson said this, that I'm probably not going to say this correctly, but it's when you can make a man feel like a champion, when he can feel like a man and he is ready to dive at and worship at the temple of your heart, because you are empowering him to feel like a man, like he is here, he can take care of you. You are his God. You are her God. You're her God man. And he will worship at the temple of your heart. Oh, I love that. So beautiful.
It,
So
it, it totally made me think of like a woman sitting in a chair and a man feeding her grapes. Like he will feed her grapes till the end of time, as long as she keeps on telling him, "Oh my God, thank you so much for feeding me these grapes. Like I was so hungry. I didn't have anything to eat all day. These grapes, they're like the best grapes I've ever had in my life." And you're giving this man a win, because
Mhm.
men, they need to feel like they've won. And whether or not you're nudging him or you're helping him, by influencing him through telling him something. When you're able to give a man a win and you taking away the credit, knowing you can do it all on your own, but you're allowing him to have a win to do something for you, that elevates a man. And you don't even have to tell him that you did this for him. Just by giving him the win, giving him all the credit, and telling him you appreciate it, that's enough to fill a man for like a week.
Mm-hmm. And it's natural. It's just stimulating something innate that's natural inside of him. You're stimulating that ability to provide, to take care of you. And it's not, as a woman, becoming weak. You're speaking his language. You're speaking the language of his soul to provide and take care of you as the woman. And you're giving something to him because he's able to stand in his own natural nature as your hero. He's your hero.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you can identify the love languages, like your own love language, that it it is your primary, and you're able to share that with him, you're going to have a different sense of love, because when you're provided the type of love that you crave, that you desire, that whether you've had that your entire life and you want to keep that, or you've never had that and you crave it, when you're given that, that is like the best gift you can have, because it's like having a personalized Christmas present like every day of your life, and it's the present that was bought for Christmas. It was straight from the heart. You knew exactly what that person wanted. It's wrapped in a beautiful bow. And when you receive that, of whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that's one of the five, you feel like so in touch with that person, because you truly feel seen and heard by that person, by the way that they're showing their love to you without expecting anything in return. They're giving this to you unconditionally, and you are receiving this gift that is straight from their heart, knowing that it's straight from their heart in your own way that you desire being loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a way women need to come from a feeling place, men are the thinkers. And another example that I've heard before is, instead of saying on the couch, it's cold in there, instead of saying, hey, can you turn down the heat? Just like, oh, it's really cold in here. And inviting him to step up and be the man. And he goes and turns on the heat a little bit. That is just like, oh my gosh, he's heard me. He's listening, he's intuiting me before I even have to say anything. So there's ways to invite them to step up and do that. And then they feel like the champion. And it's like it's that juicy polarity again, to have that, the masculine, feminine energies. Invite that in. And you're inviting your woman to be more feminine, because she can flow. She doesn't have to be concerned. She doesn't have to think, and she doesn't have to do it all. She's able to drop in and rest in her femininity. And, there's more flow. There's more presence. There's more grace. So you're inviting her to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And we crave for that. We crave for a woman to be in her feminine, to allow that, to be joyful, to be creative, to be just flowing through the world, and just being in touch with her emotions, her feelings, her wants, her needs, her desires, what she wants in life. Like, we crave to hear that in a woman. And when she's able to embody that, it makes us just a couple feet taller. It builds us. It helps cultivate that masculine brick inside of us that is just so attractive for a woman to feel in a man when he's truly in his masculine. So you're actually helping him by being yourself when you're able to be in your feminine, and everything that makes you happy with him, whether it's his ability to do an act of service for you or to make your life easier, just by being who you really are in your feminine, you're actually influencing him to doing these things for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm. And that just brought to mind like the Southern Belle. And back in the day where there were specific roles, like women were home taking care of the kids and they were house caregivers. And then the men went out and got the job and they came back. There was that polarity. Now, thank God there's been some women movements and we can go out and work. We can provide for ourselves, but it's also gone over that tipping point. It's also gone to the extreme. Like, there's been a lot of strides that have been made, but there's also been we've stepped back a little bit as far as we as women can do everything ourselves. Well, where does that leave room for the man to do anything and provide for us. So for us as women, we need to recognize, if we do have a powerful job, to be able to come back and to be able to let that go, leave that in the office and come back and be this juicy, flowy, beauty, grace woman that is all things, and allow our men to be our men.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. And I can see that to switch from 9 to 5 to switch into your flow, I could imagine that may be a challenge, but when you're able to do that and to flow with that, and whether it's through a ritual like on your drive home, or whether it's having a conversation with your spouse as soon as you get home, that he gives you that space to vent, to let loose, to unwind, to then get you into your feminine, however it may be. Once that happens, like it invites so many amazing experiences, because we're just so attracted to that, and we feel that sense of purpose. We feel that sense that she needs us in our life, that we provide something more than our bank account. We provide something that she does not have from 9 to 5. We provide something that there is nobody else on this planet can provide but me. And that's what makes our relationship special. And when she makes me feel that way, where I matter, even though I may make less than her, or I may have less influence than her, when she makes me feel like I really matter, and she's even more powerful than me, or she has everything that she needs on her own, knowing that she's treating me this way, knowing she has everything on her own, that even empowers me even more. Because when you don't need somebody, but you really express to that person that I choose you, I want you in my life. I don't need you in my life because I can do this on my own, but I've chosen you, I want you, and I want to have you in my life for the rest of my life. That does something for somebody, knowing that they could do everything on their own, but they've chosen me, and I've chosen them.
Yeah, and it's not being helpless, it's being able to show vulnerability as a woman, and you're allowing, I can do it my own. Sure, I can, but she's allowing me to be the man. She's allowing me to give to her. Such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got this big smile on my face.
I love it.
Yes. Yes. So I know regarding the love languages, you have a certain way that you incorporate the 5 senses. Can you expand a little bit more on that? And that, my friends, will be available on the next episode of the Awaken Heart podcast, where we get a little bit more raw and real and a whole lot of PG-13. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awaken Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenheartpodcast.com.